I never thought a late-night drive could turn into the most terrifying night of my life. I've always liked driving through quiet areas, especially at night. No traffic, no noise. Just me, the road, and whatever playlist I'm in the mood for. But that night, it felt different. It started off fine. I'd left my cousin's place around 9 p.m., heading back home through the backcountry of Kentucky, just south of the West Virginia border. I plugged in my route, set my phone on the dash, and took off. About an hour in, the highway signs faded. The roads narrowed. No streetlights, no gas stations, just miles of cracked pavement and thick black trees. My cell service dropped off around the same time the GPS froze. Still, I figured it was just a blip. I'd keep going and pick up signal soon. Then I passed the first car, or what was left of it. An old sedan, half buried in a ditch, windshield shattered. No one around, no flashers, just there, dead. I slowed down, thinking maybe I should check if someone needed help, but something in my gut said, keep driving. So I did. 5 minutes later, I realized something was off with my tires. The car felt heavy, sluggish. I pulled over and got out with my flashlight. Both back tires, slashed, not flat, cut, like someone had taken a blade and sliced through them on purpose. That's when I heard it. Twigs snapping in the trees, fast footsteps, not running, but circling, watching. I jumped back in the car and locked the doors. That's when a light hit my window. A blinding flashlight beam aimed right into my face. I couldn't see who was holding it, but I heard the voice. "Pop the trunk," he said. No emotion, just cold and flat. I didn't move, just froze. Then another voice, closer this time, behind my car. "You're not from around here, are you?" I slammed the car into drive and floored it. The tires screamed against the rims, but I didn't care. I drove like hell, metal grinding, sparks flying. I didn't care if the car broke down completely. I just needed distance. Somehow, I made it to a fork in the road. One path went down into a valley. The other looked newer, paved, clean. I took it without thinking. It led me straight to a gate, a rusty chain-link fence across the road. No buildings, no signs, just this huge gate standing in the middle of nowhere. Before I could back up, headlights appeared behind me. 2 trucks, no license plates. I had nowhere to go, so I did the only thing I could. I turned off my lights, ditched the car, and ran into the woods. Branches tore at my arms. I tripped more than once, but I kept going. For what felt like hours. I didn't stop until I saw lights through the trees. Real lights. A house. A porch. I banged on the door like my life depended on it. An old man answered with a shotgun pointed straight at me. I yelled, "I need help. Someone's chasing me." He didn't ask questions, just pulled me inside, locked the door, and said, "You took the wrong road, didn't you?" Turns out, he knew. That shortcut? Locals call it Bone Hollow. People who take that road after dark don't always make it back. Sometimes hunters find their cars weeks later, but never the driver. I was lucky. I'd like to think it was instinct that saved me, but maybe it was just dumb luck. Either way, I never take shortcuts anymore. I was 13 years old when I eventually went to high school. I didn't really have friends. I was that quiet loner type. I didn't mind. I was there to study, not to socialize. Science was my favorite subject. That's why I was so happy. When I got chosen to be a student assistant in the science room, first year, and already living my dream. Our school used that room for experiments, and when class was done, it was our job to clean up. Most students avoided the science room after hours. Not me. I stayed even when there were no classes. I liked it there, at least at first. I didn't mind the preserved frogs, lizards, snakes, even insects in jars. I'd sometimes just stare at them, read a book, and lose track of time. But one afternoon, while I was alone, reading, I felt it. Someone was watching me. I looked up. No one was there. Or so I thought. That afternoon, I finally saw what had been watching me. I looked back down at my book, and there it was. A black cat sitting right on the table, right on top of the page I was reading. I jumped. "Where the hell did that cat come from?" I whispered. It was pitch black, with eyes that didn't blink. I hadn't even heard it come in, and for some reason, it felt like it wanted me to leave. So I did. After that, I started seeing the black cat more often. Every afternoon, like clockwork, it would just appear in the science room. Sometimes sitting, sometimes watching, sometimes gone the moment I looked away. I told our science teacher about it. I said, "Sir, there's a black cat roaming around in the lab. What if it knocks over the jars or breaks the bottles?" But he didn't seem worried. "That cat's been living there for years," he said, not even looking up from the test papers he was grading. "Doesn't cause any trouble. It's the guardian of this room." Guardian? I asked what he meant. He just smiled and said, "Just don't mess around in the science room. If you leave it alone, it won't bother you." That answer didn't sit right with me, so I asked around, some upperclassmen, a few former student assistants. That's when I found out the cat had been there a long time, like since their parents were students in that same school. They said the black cat never left the science room. It didn't show up during class hours, never wandered outside. Some students never even saw it once. And those who tried to catch it, they got sick afterward. Fever, chills. Some didn't come back to class for weeks. One of them never even returned to that room. One time, there were 4 of us cleaning the science room together. Out of nowhere, a ping pong ball rolled across the floor. There was no breeze. The windows were closed. One of my classmates pointed at it, confused. "Where'd that come from?" I shrugged. A black cat was playing with it. They looked at me like I had just spoken another language. "You know, the black cat?" I said. They all froze. Then, out of nowhere, they ran out of the room, screaming. The cat must have gotten spooked too, because it leapt onto a table and vanished right before my eyes. The next day, I asked them why they ran. Turns out, they never saw the cat. A few days later, I stayed behind again to clean. I pretended not to care, but deep down, I was hoping that would show up. And it did. This time, it didn't sit on the tables or playing with anything. It just stared at one of the cabinets. The big metal one in the corner. Rusty, locked, and never opened. I don't know what came over me, but I walked toward it. The cat didn't move. It just kept staring. I bent down to check the cabinet. It was locked, but loose. The padlock was there, but it wasn't properly latched, like someone had closed it in a hurry. And then I heard it, knocking, from the inside. I froze. The air turned cold. My spine stiffened like it knew something my brain didn't want to accept. I turned to the cat. It was gone. No paw steps, no noise, nothing. I backed away from the cabinet, but I couldn't take my eyes off it. The next day, I asked Sir if anyone used the old cabinet. He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "Don't touch that cabinet. Ever." "But what's in it?" I asked. "Chemicals," he said. "Old ones, dangerous." He said it too fast, too rehearsed, like a line he had said before, too many times. But something told me it wasn't chemicals. I never told him about the knocking, and I didn't go near that cabinet again, until the day I heard someone calling my name from inside it. This happened in early spring of last year. I had just moved into a small 2-bedroom rental house on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, but clean, affordable, and most importantly, mine. After years of roommates, shared walls, and constant noise, I was finally living alone. I thought it would feel freeing, empowering even. It didn't. At first, it just felt quiet. Too quiet. The house sat on a dead-end street surrounded by woods on 2 sides. The realtor called it private. I called it isolated. But I figured I'd get used to it. I had a steady remote job, a cat named Olive, and a few boxes of mismatched furniture to make it feel like home. The first few days were uneventful. I unpacked, set up my workspace, even put up some cheap curtains to make the place feel less bare. But almost immediately, I noticed something odd about the house at night. It was loud. Not in a city kind of way, but in a creaking wood, shifting shadows, every floorboard makes a sound kind of way. I chalked it up to the house settling. That's what everyone says, right? Then came the third night. I'd stayed up a little later than usual watching something mindless on my laptop. It was just after 1 a.m. when I finally turned everything off and got into bed. Olive was curled up at my feet, already asleep. The window was open a crack. Cool air, quiet night. Then I heard it. A knock, not loud, not urgent, just a single knock. I froze. It wasn't from the front door. It sounded like it came from the back of the house. The laundry room, where there's a door that leads to the yard. That door didn't have a peephole. No window either, just solid wood. I waited, listening. Silence. I'd told myself it was probably an animal, a raccoon maybe, or the wind. But then it came again. 3 slow knocks. Not fast, not panicked, like whoever was on the other side wanted me to hear, wanted me to know they were there. I sat up, held my breath. Olive was awake now too, ears perked up, staring toward the hallway, not moving, just watching. I grabbed my phone and checked the time, 1:17 a.m. No messages, no missed calls, no alerts. I tiptoed down the hallway and stood at the edge of the kitchen, just out of sight from the laundry room door. My heart was pounding. I don't know how long I stood there, but then the doorknob rattled. Just once. Not a full turn. Just enough to make it clear that someone was testing it. That's when I realized I never locked that door. I panicked and ran into the kitchen, flipped on the lights, grabbed the closest thing I could find, a broom, and practically slammed my shoulder into the door to keep it shut. I reached up, turned the deadbolt with shaking hands, then silence again. No knocks, no footsteps, nothing. I stayed there, pressed against the door, listening to my own heartbeat. Eventually, I called the non-emergency police line. An officer came 20 minutes later. He did a quick walk around the property, shined his flashlight into the woods, asked me a few questions, then shrugged. "Probably kids messing around," he said. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. But here's the part that still messes with me. The next morning, I walked around the house myself, just to check. And on the outside of the laundry room door, just beneath the knob, were 3 long, deep scratches in the wood. Not random, not messy. 3 parallel lines, like someone had dragged their fingers, or something else, straight down the door. I moved out 2 months later. I never found out who or what was knocking, but I never left a door unlocked again. I've been running trails for over 10 years. What started as short hikes back in college slowly turned into long trips. Days out in the wild, up in the mountains, alone. Out there, away from the noise, I feel the most like myself. Not pretending to be perfect, just real, just alive. Last spring, I planned a solo trip through the 100-mile wilderness in Maine. It's the most remote part of the Appalachian Trail, stretching from Monson to just before Baxter State Park. My plan was simple. 3 days, 2 nights, just me and the forest. I started early, around 7 a.m. The air was still cold. I had everything I needed: GPS, food, water, and a bear canister. I thought I was ready for anything. The first day was strange. There was nothing. No birds, no animals, no people. Just complete silence. It felt off, but I kept moving. By the second day, things got weird. I saw boot prints on the trail, prints that weren't there the day before. They weren't brand new, but fresh enough. And they were strange. Zigzagging, almost like someone was confused, or maybe watching. Then I found a candy wrapper. It wasn't just dropped. It was folded neatly, like someone had placed it there on purpose. That's when I really started to feel nervous. The footprints got worse. Circles, backtracking, random turns. It was like someone was wandering without a plan. Or stalking. Around noon, I heard footsteps behind me. Not animals. Human footsteps. Maybe 30 or 40 feet back, up on a ridge. I stopped and called out. No answer. That night, things got worse. When I checked my pack, that same kind of candy wrapper was sitting right on top, folded, like a message. I'm here. At around 3 a.m., I heard movement just outside the light from my fire. Heavy breathing, slow pacing, not running, just waiting, watching. I didn't sleep after that. On my last day, heading back toward my car, I saw him. A man, deep in the woods. Beard. Old, dirty clothes that looked like they hadn't been changed in years. He didn't say a word. Just stood there between the trees, staring at me. Then, he raised a gun. I ran. I didn't stop until I reached the ranger station. When I told them what happened, they were polite, but didn't really believe me. Said it was probably a drifter. Nothing to worry about. But then, something strange happened. I posted my story online, and people started reaching out. One woman said she found papers near her tent, papers with kids' names written on them. Another hiker said someone followed her for days. She never saw who it was, but she could hear them, always just out of sight. This wasn't just a bad hiking trip. There's something out there in the 100-mile wilderness. Something watching, waiting, and it's not alone. I've never told anyone this story before. Not my friends, not even my family. It happened so long ago, back when I was just a quiet, awkward elementary student. But the memory never left me. And now, thanks to this channel, I finally feel like it's safe to share it. People here listen, they don't judge. That's why I'm writing this now. Back then I was active in contests, drawing mostly. I was one of our school's cartoonists. There were 3 of us, and I usually placed in the top 3. My teachers used to say I could be a painter or an animator someday. That never happened. But I'm okay with that. I've lived a good life. I just remember all the places we went for contests. Traveling to different schools, joining competitions. I even made it to nationals once. We reached Makati. But the place I'll never forget was this small elementary school. But on our final night there, around 3 a.m., I woke up. We were all sleeping on the classroom floor, lined up like sardines, tired from the day's activities. At first, I thought I just needed to pee, or maybe I heard something. But when I opened my eyes, the classroom felt wrong. Too quiet. Too still. Like the air had stopped moving. Everyone else was asleep. But I felt something. A presence. Like I was being watched. Not just from the door or the windows. From inside the room. The lights were off. I carefully stepped over the other students, sleeping on the floor. I was in the middle of the room, so I had to be extra careful not to wake anyone. The floor creaked under my weight, but nobody stirred. Outside, a dim light from a street lamp barely slipped through the windows, just enough to see. I reached the door, opened it slowly, and walked toward the bathroom at the end of the hallway. It was cold. Colder than it should have been. I flicked the bathroom light switch, sat down on the toilet, and tried to calm my stomach. Must have been something I ate. I stuffed myself before bed. Typical me, during events. And then, I looked up. There was something red on the wall. At first I thought maybe it was rust, or some kind of paint stain dripping down from the ceiling. But then, the smell hit me. That sharp, metallic scent. It clung to my nose, thick and iron-like. Blood. It was blood. Fresh, still warm, slowly sliding down the tiled wall. I just sat there, staring, unable to move. And then, I heard it, a soft, dripping sound, not from the sink, not from the ceiling, from somewhere just behind the stall door. Something was standing there, waiting. I couldn't understand it. Why was there blood sliding down the bathroom wall? Where was it coming from? I stared, heart pounding in my ears, trying to make sense of it, when I heard something that made my stomach drop, crying. Faint at first, like it was coming from the next room or behind the walls. But it wasn't just crying. It was a child's cry. Soft, broken, echoing through the tiles. That's when the fear hit me all at once. I didn't care if I wasn't finished. I cleaned up in seconds and flushed, reaching for the door handle. But when I pulled, it wouldn't budge. Locked. It was locked from the inside. I looked back at the blood. It had now reached the floor, thick and spreading across the tiles. Then the lights began to flicker. Slow, rhythmic, almost like they were blinking at me. And that's when I saw it. Handprints and footprints appearing in the blood. One after another, like an invisible person was walking toward me, leaving red, wet marks with every step. I couldn't take it anymore. I screamed, louder than I ever have in my life. Screamed until my throat burned and my ears rang. Screamed until I was sure the whole school would wake up. And then, I heard the door slam open. It was Ma'am. She rushed in and I ran to her, clinging to her like a child. I was crying so hard I thought I'd pass out. I could barely talk, but when I finally calmed down enough to speak, I told them everything. The blood, the prints, the locked door. They checked the bathroom, over and over. There was nothing, not a single drop of blood, no smears, no handprints, no footprints, nothing. I checked it myself, clean, dry, white, as if nothing ever happened. The teachers who were there tried to calm me down. They told me maybe it was just stress from the contest, that maybe I was tired, overwhelmed, imagining things. One even joked. They laughed a little, like I had just told them a silly ghost story. I stopped talking after that. I didn't bring it up again, not to them, not to my classmates, not even when I wanted to scream, "I know what I saw." But later that afternoon, someone pulled me aside. It was one of the students from that school, a quiet guy, maybe a year older than me. He looked serious, too serious. "I believe you," he said. Those words almost made me tear up. Then he added something that made my skin crawl. "Because I've seen it too. The blood, the prints, even the crying." He said the same thing happened to him last year in the same bathroom. But just like me, no one believed him either. They called him dramatic, accused him of trying to get attention. We sat there in silence for a while. I didn't know what to say, but deep inside I felt it. I wasn't crazy, and I wasn't alone. It was supposed to be a simple trip. I had done long drives before, especially in my old car that didn't have air conditioning. That's why I usually traveled at night. My plan was to reach my destination by 5 a.m. I wasn't really in a hurry. The place didn't matter as much as the peace that driving through the mountains always gave me. The road took me deep into the most remote parts of West Virginia. It was pitch dark. No streetlights, no cars, just long stretches of highway swallowed by trees. Sometimes I'd spot a lonely house far away on a hill, the lights glowing like tiny stars. Other than that, it was just me, the road, and the sound of my engine. But then, something strange happened. Out of nowhere, I saw a quick flash of light coming through the trees. It looked like someone holding a flashlight. Just for a second, and then gone. I brushed it off. Maybe a hunter? A camper? I didn't stop. But later, I had to. Nature called, and I couldn't wait. So I pulled over on the side of the road, surrounded by thick forest. As soon as I stepped out, it happened. A man came screaming out of the darkness. He had a rifle pointed straight at me. His eyes were wild, His clothes were dirty. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. He yelled at me, told me to let him in the car, said if I didn't, he'd take it by force. I froze. I had no idea what to do, but with that gun in my face, I didn't argue. I unlocked the door. He jumped into the passenger seat and kept that rifle pointed at me the whole time. He didn't say much, just kept muttering and looking over his shoulder like he thought someone was following him. His hands were shaking. His face was sweaty. He was twitching like he was ready to snap. Then things got worse. My headlights lit up the road ahead, and I saw it. A man lying in the middle of the road, not moving, looked unconscious. But next to him, half hidden in the woods, was a car, almost like it had been crashed or left there on purpose. My gut told me it was a setup, a trap. I slowed down, and the man in my car started panicking. Before I could say anything, 2 more men came running out from the trees. One of them had a gun, and he started shooting at us. I swerved hard and took the first side trail I saw. It was muddy, narrow, and wild, but I didn't care. I floored it. The man next to me was screaming, telling me where to turn. He kept shouting, "They're after me! They followed me!" I didn't know if I could trust him, but I didn't have a choice. We drove for what felt like forever, through dirt, puddles, down small forest roads. I didn't even know where we were anymore. Just trying to stay alive? Eventually, he told me to stop and let him out. He jumped out, disappeared into the woods without another word. I kept driving until I found a gas station with lights on. I pulled in, shaking, heart pounding, not even sure if I was safe. I never reported it. What would I even say? But to this day, I can still see his face and those other men waiting in the dark. If you ever find yourself driving alone through the mountains of West Virginia, be careful. Out there in the middle of nowhere, no one can hear you scream, and sometimes help never comes. When I was in 6th grade, something happened that I'll never forget. A powerful typhoon hit our town out of nowhere. We were still in school when the wind started howling and the rain poured like it was never going to stop. No one told us there was no class that day, no warning, no announcement. We were stuck. And our school? It was far from home. Too far to walk in that kind of storm. That's when things started to get really strange. We had to cross a river just to get home, so our teacher decided it was safer to keep us at school. We ended up stranded there, one whole day and through the night. But for most of us, it wasn't that scary at first. Whenever bad weather hit, our parents knew we'd stay at school. In fact, we were usually safer there. Our house would flood during storms, but the school stayed dry. Still, something about that night felt different. Ma'am Rose told us we were not allowed to leave the classroom. No wandering around, no switching rooms, and when it was time to eat, she made sure we didn't leave in groups or go alone. She said it like it was just for safety, but there was something in her voice, like she knew something we didn't. She locked the classroom door that night, not just closed, locked it from the inside. We weren't sure if it was to keep us in or to keep something out. The storm outside was getting worse. Trees were cracking. The wind sounded like it was screaming. But inside, it was too quiet, too still. Even the lights flickered like they were scared to stay on. Then, around midnight, someone knocked on the classroom door. But here's the thing. We were all already inside. I saw Ma'am Rose was standing by the small window. She wasn't sleeping. She was watching. I got up and asked her what she was looking at. She didn't answer, just raised a finger to her lips, signaling me to stay quiet. Let me explain something about our classroom. It wasn't like the others. Because the school was short on rooms, our section was placed in what used to be an old storage room, an old bodega tucked behind the main building, almost hidden by trees. Ma'am whispered to me that she saw 2 men circling the classroom, but she said something that made my blood run cold. "They're not men," she said. "They're a swang." She said she recognized them. Two brothers who lived at the foot of the mountain. Aswangs in disguise. Creatures who feed on people, especially children. I peeked outside. I saw them. And I knew them. They were the same two who once attacked me and my father after a funeral. That night, we only escaped because my dad had a stingray tail whip. That's the only reason they backed off. Now they were here again. And this time, we were trapped. They started walking toward the classroom. Ma'am Rose quickly woke everyone. She told us to stay alert, that the creatures might try to break in. We stacked chairs against the door to block it. Some of my classmates were crying, especially the girls. We were all shaking, but Ma'am said not to be afraid. She told us to pray and handed each of us something to defend ourselves. Shoes, books, even chairs. Anything we could hold. Then we heard it. A knock. Ma'am peered through the small hole in the door. "It's one of them," she whispered. "The other one is circling around, looking for another way in." My heart was pounding so loud I thought they could hear it. The knocking got louder. When we didn't open the door, it turned into banging, violent, angry, desperate. They wanted in. Ma'am stood by the door, holding a mop like a spear. "If they get through," she said, "I'll stab first." We all held our breath. The door rattled like it would break any second. Then, suddenly, the banging stopped. We heard voices outside. It was the principal and the janitor. There was no guard at our school, no phones back then, just people looking out for each other. The janitor had seen the two Aswangs trying to get into our classroom and ran to get help. The principal and janitor brought machetes. They chased the creatures away. They stayed with us until morning. Only then did we breathe easier. I overheard Ma'am talking to them. She said those brothers were getting bold because nobody had dared stop them before. She said they had to be driven out for good. But after that night, they never came back. Maybe they were afraid our families would come after them. That night stayed with me. I'm not an introvert. I have friends. I'm not the type to be lonely or make things up for attention. But this really happened. Inside our classroom, back in my first year of high school, that's where I saw it. A black dwarf. Not the kind from fairy tales. This one was small, silent, and somehow I could feel it watching me. I'd heard stories before. Some said black dwarfs were kind, helpful even, but others warned me, don't trust them. They said these creatures only pretend to be friendly, so they can get close to you, so they can take your body, that they're worse than the red ones. I didn't know what to believe, until I met him. Then I started to wonder, maybe I really do have a third eye, because I didn't just feel something. I saw him, clear as day. It was the first time something like that ever happened to me. We were assigned to clean the classroom. There were 6 of us. My classmates rushed through the cleaning. They just wanted to go home fast. But I'm always slow. Even at home, my mom tells me I move like I'm half asleep. She'd say, "Did you even eat? Are you sick?" But that day, I wasn't just slow. Something was holding me back. And that's when I saw him, behind the chairs, in the corner, under the pale yellow light of the late afternoon. He didn't move. But I swear, he knew I could see him. And that was just the beginning. That's just how I am. I've always been slow, moving at my own pace. And because of that, my group mates got impatient. They left me behind while I was still fixing the chairs. I was arranging the last one when I noticed him. A small figure, quietly sitting in the corner of the room, staring right at me. My first reaction was fear. I almost ran out of the classroom. But then he spoke. "Don't be scared," he said. "I'm not here to hurt you." That's when I froze. And for some reason, I stayed. I started talking to him. He told me his name was John. From that day on, we became friends. but only I could see him. My teacher started noticing something strange, how I was always talking to myself in class. She caught me more than once. At first, I tried to ignore it, but eventually she asked me directly what was going on. I told her the truth, that I had a friend, a dwarf, named John. I didn't think it through. I didn't realize how scared she and my classmates would get. The next day, she called my mom to school, and not long after, they brought in a faith healer to cleanse the classroom and get rid of the dwarf. I tried to stop them, but no one listened. I tried to stop them, but no one listened. And because of what they did, John got angry. He almost died from the ritual. The albulario's spell nearly erased him. A week passed. My teacher didn't come to school. She was sick, too sick to even get out of bed. John came back, though. The spell had worn off, and he was back in our classroom. Even though I was mad at how they treated him, I still felt sorry for my teacher. She only acted out of fear. So I begged John, "Please, take it back. She didn't mean to hurt you." And that's when I learned. John still had a good heart. He agreed. He lifted the curse. My teacher got better. But from that day on, we made a promise. Our friendship would be a secret. No one else could know. It was just too dangerous when others got involved. He was still there, still watching, still my friend, and we stayed that way. All the way until I graduated. I was in high school then. John and I had been friends for 4 years. The only thing that made me sad was when I had to transfer to a faraway school for college. Back in our old classrooms, he could still follow me around. But at that distant school, he couldn't. It's like their power to travel was limited. There was this one time. I went back to visit my old school. I was so excited, hoping I'd see my friend again. But instead, I felt my heart sink. Not even a shadow of him appeared. No trace. Not even the faintest sign that he was ever there. I have no idea what happened to John. But even so, I've never forgotten what we shared. I didn't think a road trip would change my life forever. It all started when my girlfriend and I planned to drive up to Canada to visit her family. We were excited, bags packed, playlists ready, snacks in the back seat. Everything was normal, perfect even. But then we got a call. My grandma was sick, so we decided to take a detour through the Appalachian Mountains to visit her first. Just a small change in our route. At first, the drive was beautiful. My girlfriend had never seen the Appalachian landscape before, and she kept pointing out the rolling hills, endless trees, and the way the sky changed colors as we drove. We stopped in Buffalo to grab more supplies. We watched the sunset in Pittsburgh. It was honestly one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. But once we crossed into West Virginia, things started to feel different. The roads became narrow, twisting, quiet. Forests pressed in on both sides, thick and dark, like they were hiding something. There weren't many houses, no gas stations, barely any other cars. It felt like we were driving into another world. By the time the sun went down, we were almost out of gas. We finally spotted this tiny gas station on the side of the road. One of those old, half-lit places that looks like it hasn't been touched in years. But honestly, we were both a little nervous. While I was filling up the tank, something happened that still gives me chills. A woman walked up behind me. I didn't hear her at first. She just appeared. She looked like she was in her 50s, but her face, it didn't look right. Her eyes were wide open, like she hadn't blinked in hours. She didn't say a word, just stared. I turned to the gas station attendant, thinking maybe he knew her, but his whole face changed. He got tense, scared. Without saying anything, he grabbed a hunting rifle from under the counter and started scanning the windows. That's when I knew something was very, very wrong. He didn't even explain. He just muttered, "She's not alone." Turns out, she was part of some group, people who lived deep in the mountains. Locals whispered about them. about people going missing, about things the police wouldn't investigate. Nobody ever said it out loud, but everyone seemed to know. Stay away from the woods. We got in the van and drove as fast as we could. But the night was far from over. Around 2 a.m., we pulled into a small clearing to rest. We didn't think they'd follow us, but we were wrong. We started hearing noises outside, branches snapping, soft footsteps. Then we saw her again. That same woman. She was standing just a few feet away from the van, staring straight at us. And behind her, shadows. More people. They were surrounding us. I had my dad's old handgun with me. It was the only thing that made me feel a little safer. We sat there in total silence, not daring to move. I held that gun so tight, and my hands were shaking. I knew if they broke through the windows, we were done. But they never did. Maybe they saw the gun. Maybe they changed their minds. I don't know. All I know is by sunrise, they were gone. We didn't sleep that night. We didn't talk much after either. We just drove. Fast. Straight to my grandma's house. Years have passed since that night, but I still can't forget it. I used to love the mountains. I grew up around them. They felt like home. But now, every time I see a stretch of woods, I remember her face, her eyes, that gas station, that feeling that something ancient and dark is watching you, just waiting for you to take a wrong turn. So if you ever find yourself driving through the Appalachians, don't stop for strangers. And whatever you do, don't go into the woods.